Welcome back to the Bricken Coop series. In the last video, we finished the brickwork. And in this video, we're going to build the roof. So it's time to find a way to attach the roof structure to the brick. What we're going to do is I'm going to use 2x4 treated top plates on the front and the back walls. So I'll cut a couple of treated 2x4s, the exact length of the back wall and the front wall. And then to attach it, I'll use galvanized ring shank nails or ceramic coated screws. And I'll put them through the 2x4 into random holes in the brick. Now obviously there's nothing in the holes to attach it, so we'll be able to just lift the 2x4 off of the brickwork because the nails won't be attached to anything. And then what we'll do is lay a bed of mortar across all these bricks and put mortar in the holes where the nails or screws will go, and then bed down the top plate so that the nails go into the screws and the top plate itself rests in a nice bed of mortar. And then when all that cures, those treated lumber top plates will be securely attached to the brickwork, and that will give us something to attach the roof rafters to with either nails or screws. Found these stainless steel screws, so I decided to use those. Now that should have gone into nothing, and it did. Now I need to mark which ones of these holes need mortar. I'm actually going to make this mortar really wet because it's probably going to be on the brick a while before I can get the wood down, and I don't want the brick to absorb all the moisture before we have time to set the plate. Just going to try to get an even joint. I used to wonder how you clean the mortar off the bricks and how you keep from getting it all over, and I commented on one of Stu Crompton's videos, and he said it's all about brick hygiene. It's the way you scrape, you cut the mortar, you don't smear the mortar, and then afterwards, after the mortar sets, this isn't quite set, you come back with a brush, and I'll show you on this dry stuff down here. This is just a dry brush. You can see how it takes the dry mortar right off. Now if you let that sit for weeks and weeks, it's not going to take it off, but let that set up a little, and then I'll come back and I'll brush all that, and it also gets all the little crumbles. After you finish it with your finishing tool, you'll have little crumbles here and there above and below your joints. And when you come back with a brush and just kind of brush it off, all those little crumbles just disappear and you're just left with clean looking joints. Now we'll just let that set up for a few days and then we'll build the roof. So for my roofing materials, I plan to use these rafters that were pulled out of the, house over there, the old house that was torn down when they built that one. And then for, say, the lookouts and smaller bits, this lumber that I dug out of the dumpster from that house over there that they've been building. So far, everything we've used to build the coop, except for the concrete and the mortar, has been free. And most of it came from over there. Well, it looks like this is hardened up nicely. So what is the roofing plan? I want to have as large of overhangs as possible. So I think I want this to overhang probably at least to that brick wall down there so that it doesn't splash back inside the coop. And then, so far on this side, probably a foot on each side. What I'll do is I'll probably just lay a board across them for now and just kind of make some marks on the board where my bird's mouths will go and where the end cuts will go, and we'll just kind of make a template rafter and then make a few more off that template. Oh, and we probably want to get this roof on quickly because I don't like this sitting out in the rain. The brick is okay, but if the wood gets wet and swells up and then dries out and swells up, it could eventually kind of loosen itself up from the mortar and the brickwork. So I think for now I'm just going to grab one of these short pieces to put on the roof to kind of get my bearings on what the rafters are going to look like. Actually, this short piece isn't that bad. I figured I'd go a little longer on the front and the back, but if I don't have enough lumber, that's probably good enough right there. I just need to mark for my bird's mouths or a seat cut right here and right here, and then mark plumb cuts for the back and the front. All I need for this is a square, a level, and a pencil. So I'm just going to take my level, make sure that it's plumb, make a little mark there, there. Go ahead and do our plumb cut for the end over there. So I need to obviously make these cuts square. So now we know this board is 1.5 inches thick, so we want to come up 1.5 inches and make a mark there, and then we want to square off of that by lining up this edge with this line. You could actually do this with just a tape measure and the level again. Must not have been holding that right. The bottom line is the right line. So from my plumb cut, I'm going to go up 1.5 inches, mark a level line. Now I should go ahead and mark the edge of this. Of course, if there are any deviations in the wall, some of these might not fit right. Let's make them slightly wide. Now let's see if this will fit all the way across. So it fit to about midway, and then it got to where it seems like it was about a 1/16 of an inch too wide. So our template we'll just cut a 1/16 inch off, and then it should fit good all the way down there. Now we need to determine how many of these we need. So we'll measure this across and we'll space them about every 16 inches. So it looks like we'll need 6 rafters. I've marked the back plate, same as the front plate. That is secure. By the way, I'm using hot dipped ring shank galvanized nails. So now we need to install some blocking to keep these rafters from rolling over and to keep the critters from crawling through the top. Don't tell me I tightened that up too much. Oh, that's still on the line. Actually cut this too long. Now the way I'm going to do this one is actually nail it at an angle through here, and then I'll come straight through the back of this. And trying to make room for the camera, I totally missed that board. Something I meant to do that I didn't was I meant to rip these down on the ends so that they weren't as deep. Obviously a 2x6 cut at an angle, this measurement is longer than this measurement. So a regular 2x6 won't cover that exactly. It actually probably will do okay since that's such a slight angle, but it would have been better to work with something smaller so our fascia can cover everything nicely. Because we're going to run strapping on top of this for the roofing material, and we want the fascia to actually go all the way to the top of the strapping as well. Okay, so we got front and back. That is good enough for tonight. Ladies, time to get back in the coop. There's a mess of leaves up here I gotta get off. In order to keep the water from splashing back inside the coop, we want overhangs not just on the front and the back, but on the sides as well. So we need to make some lookouts that'll come off of here and hold up the barge rafter. Basically a piece of fascia that runs down the side, and the roof will overhang that. So we're going to notch this for some 2x4s. Probably only need to do it in 2 places. The 2x4 will stick out maybe a foot, or however long this overhang is here. It'll stick out the same on the side, right out the top, and it'll go through this and be tied into the next rafter. So we got about 65 inches to work with here. Come in 20 inches on each side. Then we're going to take this little piece of 2x4 cut off right there. We'll just make sure the 2x4 fits in there. Nice. Might need to take the chisel and just fine tune it a little bit. It's a little proud up here. Now let's trim these rafter tails down. Are they still called tails when they stick out the front? Let's bring these down to 2x4 depth, but I want to keep the meat right here. So what we'll do is we'll angle it from here up to 2x4 depth. 3.5 inches. I put the blade in the saw backward because I think it'll help me get closer. Might have to switch to a jigsaw. I don't think I can get the saw in here. Now I'll just neaten these up with a chisel. Didn't hit the brick, did I? Ugh, that'd be good. Man, this old pine smells so good. This is a really resiny piece. Probably make good kindling. Fat wood. I'm just going to cut all the tails off level. So I switched to a different method of trimming these tails. I'm cutting some kerfs in them with this DeWalt Japanese style saw. So I'm just going up there and cutting those kerfs that you see up there. And then I'm taking my chisel and hammer and just knocking the blocks out and then shaving them up till they look neat. I know, all this really should have been done before we even put the rafters on the roof. It should have all been part of the template. Ooh, that's a shoulder workout for you. Okay, now we can get into the actual roofing. So I got these, I think they're 2 by 12 sheets of acrylic roofing from the home center for about 27 bucks a piece. But before we get to this part, we just need to lay some strapping across the top of the roof for this to kind of be supported by. I need to find another piece of strapping or cobble those little pieces together. Yeah, they'll be long enough. I need to bring this joist down to the right height. This one in the middle is a little high. Nice. This was next to impossible to film. I actually had to get up on this brick wall outside the fence here and dodge these very sharp spikes. Now I'll do the middle straps with some less than straight boards. They don't matter so much, but it's most important that the front strap is nice and straight because everyone's going to see that, but everything else doesn't matter too much. Alright, let's get some roofing on. So there's going to be 3/4 inch fascia all the way around. So I need to cut the roofing so that it overhangs all the edges by 3/4 of an inch. Since I don't have the fascia up yet. Maybe I should be using a circular saw. I don't know. My wife used this stuff before and she cut it with these. This bird netting is driving me crazy. I need one more sheet. Pick up one more sheet of that and go ahead and get the fascia. The way you fasten them is with these screws, with these neoprene washers that seal the water out. And they should be self-tapping, yep. You can see it's got a cut in it right there so it'll actually drill its own hole. And contrary to what a lot of people think, and I thought years ago, I think I actually did this wrong on one roof I did, you don't put them in the valleys. You screw them on the peaks, and that keeps, see, if it were in the valley, water would run down and pool around and be more likely to eventually penetrate around the gasket. But if they're at the peaks, then the rain water tends to avoid it anyway, even if that seal's not absolutely perfect. I'm going to make sure I have my 3/4 inch gap overhang on the front where my fascia is going to be, and I'm also going to make sure I have a gap on the side. The sides need to overhang really 1.5 inches, so that'll give me 3/4 fascia plus a little bit so it doesn't run down the fascia. I'm just going to make sure this gap is even all the way down to the end, and then I'm going to start putting some screws in. Double check before I get in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one near this end, and then one somewhere in the middle of this sheet, and then the next one I'll overlap the sheet and I'll put a screw through where it's doubled. Now it's time for the fascia, or this might be called a barge board. I'm not exactly sure. We're going to start with the sides first. I think it's going to be an 8-degree bevel on it so that it'll match up flush with the front. So that is 5 degrees right there. So we'll pivot that until it's at the 5 right there. And then we'll mark us a line. That's the long end, that's the short end. So long to short, because this side will be short and that side will be long down there, is 65 1/4. Get right on my pencil line, pivot this until it's at 5 degrees right there. I think that needs to be a little bit more than 5 degrees. Yeah, there we go. These are stainless steel finishing screws. They got on clearance from Ace Hardware, and you'll notice they've got a self-tapping tip on them and a tiny little square drive. Now for the flashing. We'll bend this a little bit so that it follows the right angle of the roof, and then we'll screw it in place using the same neoprene washer screws that we did on the roof from the front, and we'll leave the top untouched. So any water that falls on the flashing will run off and onto the roof, and then of course away, or it'll come down the face and drip off this drip edge. So it's a little dinged up. I recommend not dropping yours if you do this. That is what it looks like. I also decided not to put fascia on the back. It was just going to be too difficult, the fencing and all. Now we just need to get some measurements for the door and build one. Here's a juvenile copperhead. And look at that tail. So you can see the size. Yeah, he's about to strike. You can see by the size of my hand how small he is. Hold it up there. I mean, tiny. He's about maybe 6 or 8 inches long, but already airbrushed. Already got the distinctive markings. They come out ready to go. Look at that tail though. Bright green. Look how flat it is. Flattened out, nice hourglasses. Just wild looking. Tracking me right now. I'm filming this with a phone, so my phone is within a foot of it right now. Keeping an eye on me. You can probably tell the difference between my phone and my hand because of the heat. Since it's a pit viper, I can see heat. Not with its eyes, but it has organs on the sides of its face, which is where it gets the term pit viper. They're like pits, and they sense the heat and can track it, even in the dark. Very dangerous to handle a juvenile like this because they don't know to give warning bites or dry bites. So when they bite, sometimes they just release their full yield of venom. And this thing looked just like a little piece of dry stick on the side of the trail here. Anybody could step on it. In fact, some people are coming right now. I'll have to give them a warning. I know somebody probably wants to see what it looks like if it strikes. Got a little stick here, see what happens. Look at that. So though it's in a striking pose, it is being careful not to strike. I'm not going to hurt it or anything, I'm just barely touching it just to see. Most of the time I've dealt with copperheads, they haven't wanted to strike. In fact, I've tapped on them pretty aggressively. See if we can kind of scoop it up. Maybe you can tell that this stick is not part of the creature. Come on. See if we can get you off the trail. Oh, look at that tail. See that tail? That green tail. Come on now. Trail. Get off the trail. I know it can tell where I am. It's tracking me, not the stick. I can tell the difference. I know it. So it's like, I'm not striking that stick. I'm waiting for your warm hand to get down here. All right, that's probably good enough. I'll show you where he is. Or she, I can't tell. Here's a trail. There's a trail marker right there. Right there. Was in the middle of the path. Tiny, tiny little copperhead. Get a super close up on this tail. Look at that.